So number 3, we've got Jude Bellingham. His numbers have dropped a little bit at Real Madrid this season. Do you think he's been hurt possibly by the arrival of Kylian Mbappe?
I think it's a bit of a different role, sure. I think Carlo Ancelotti and the team had to find the best combination for Vinicius and Mbappe and Rodrigo and Bellingham, and where to put them and where they could feel, I guess, the best, really. And I think it's probably... We said it earlier in the season. For me, Bellingham had to play a little bit higher up on the pitch, closer to Kylian Mbappe to get the best out of him. I think even when England, we saw when he was closer to Bellingham, to Harry Kane, that works better for him. I would only see him there. Then he can do a bit of defending if he wants. He runs a lot. He's very physical, all of that. But yeah, I think from being maybe one of the main guys going forward, now he had to settle for something a little bit different this season.
If you had to pick a position for him, because I saw him in the City, Real Madrid, those 2 ties in the Champions League, he's playing high up at one point, he's dropping into the left of midfield to do some defensive work. If you were picking that team and you can only pick him in one position, where does he play? I
would go behind the striker, behind Mbappe. And then from there, he can, with the ball, he plays quite high. I don't want him deeper to try to do the build-up play. This can be done by Modric or Tchouaméni, Camavinga, whoever else. I think I would want him higher up the pitch. And then defensively, I think he can be the free man you want anyway. Yeah, he can cover on the left because Vinicius and Mbappe are not going to defend much. I think he can also have a bit of a free role where he's the first one to trigger the press and go and hustle for the ball, because physically he's clearly better than probably anybody even on this list at 21. He's got this incredible physical strength, energy, stamina that I don't think many others in this list have. So for me, that's where I would use him.
So the situation that Tuchel said that he was doing too much for England.
Yeah, I agree.
I think is that not because with Real Madrid he looks around, he can trust the players behind him to create play. With England, he's not got a Modric with England. He's got Declan Rice
and Henderson.
And Henderson. Seriously, that's the point. It's like, does he do more for England because he feels that the players around him? Well, they're clearly not at the same level as Real Madrid. So is he automatically falling into that role of having to do more because nobody else can do what his teammates at Real Madrid can do?
Maybe. Or do you think he felt that he had the responsibility as a leader already, or maybe he wanted the leadership, and to get the leadership, say, look, I'm here to do everything. I can defend, I can tackle, I can score, I can assist, I can run everywhere, run down the channel, create something like with the Miles Lewis Kelly goal, for example, against Albania. And that almost he put that up on himself because he wanted that leadership role and people to say, oh, yeah, you're indispensable because we need you for everything.
But is it more of a negative thing at times? If a player's doing
maybe.
Because it needs a good coach to say to him, no, actually, you need to do that. You need to be more disciplined.
Yeah,
and get more out of the teammates.
But, frankly, with all respect to Tuchel, this is kind of irrelevant. You're playing 2 games against opponents who are going to go and pack the box. And I think Bellingham probably looks around and says, and as Joel said, maybe wants to make a statement. Also because you talk about leadership and who the stars on this team are. Obviously, Harry Kane's not getting any younger. Others are in and out. He thinks it could be him for the next decade. So he wants to take on the responsibility. It's frustrating. You saw that in the Latvia game when, they didn't have a shot in goal for the first 35 minutes until the free kick. So he's willing to take that on. But I think we should judge him on his club football. And there, it's the dynamic that we talked about.
But okay, I get your point in the club football situation. Let's throw forward to the World Cup 2026 to play in France or Argentina in a quarter-final. Can you allow Bellingham to play where he wants then, or do you have to say to him, look, you have to be disciplined, you have to play in this certain role against a better team?
It depends. It depends what's going on with the other players around him. Because I may want Cole Palmer in a free role. I may want Phil Foden in a free role. It depends on the opposition. Tuchel's all like, oh yeah, we're all carefree and stuff, but maybe he'll turn into Gareth Southgate and we're all going to be, defensive and skid marks, right? I think that's the reality of the game. I think he's always going to try to seize the game. That's part of his personality. It's part of what makes him great. Can also be to the detriment of the team. But I think he's learning at Real Madrid where he's playing with guys who are as good as he is and are better than him at many things, that I think it's helping him internationally because I think he has to adopt that discipline a little bit.
The danger with flexible players is they're always asked to be flexible.
Yeah.
That always happens. If you're the player who can fill in a number of different positions, because other players can't do that, you're always the guy that's having to kind of take a secondary role a little bit to make sure you can pick a Foden or a Palmer or someone else. And ultimately, eventually, that's going to be to his detriment.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why you need a good coach with a structure that would say, okay, this is where I want you now, not everywhere and nowhere at times, I guess. And I think Carlo Ancelotti has found a way now for this Real Madrid team. Let's see where they go now this season. And for Tuchel, it's a bigger job because, if you play Bellingham behind Kane, what do you do with Palmer? What do you do with Foden? Then there's a lot of other questions.
Okay, so to discuss the player at number 2, we're joined by Jan Fjortov. How you doing, Jan?
I'm fine. How are you guys?
We're good. So 15 goals and 13 assists in all competitions this season has got Karl-Heinz Rummenigge saying that Florian Wirtz is the best player in Germany right now. Is he right?
Well, I agree with him, but it's easy for me to agree. I am not a Bayern legend, and when we know they have Musiala there, that kind of statement from Karl-Heinz Rummenigge made headlines in Germany. But I do agree with him. I mean, German football is very fortunate to have two of the best around in Musiala and Florian Wirtz. But for me, if I had to choose one of them, I would go Florian Wirtz.
So obviously he's at Leverkusen right now, and he's had a great season. But I was at the Bayern Munich game and he missed the second leg. It showed how important he is, the fact that he wasn't there. But how good is he? I mean, is he a Ballon d'Or candidate, or are we still quite a way away from that at the moment?
Well, sometimes when we discuss on ESPN Ballon d'Or, we discuss that in all different ways. But yes, of course he is. I guess it depends where he ends. We have seen those kind of awards. You have to win something. You have to win the Champions League. You have to be on a successful national team. But Florian Wirtz, with his records, what he has set since he was 17, 18, and now getting into his 20s, he's getting old. Now I'm just joking. This is a guy who is ahead of everything. Then having said that, he had a cruciate ligaments done. He came back from that again. Came back, hopefully he's back soon now from his injury. So yeah, absolutely. This will be one of the players we will, of this generation, always talk about when he's talking about the best players in the world.
Gab, Florian Wirtz?
He's right up there. I think one of the interesting things going back to the Wirtz versus Musiala dynamic, and I wonder if there's an argument to be made that maybe Wirtz also looks better than Musiala, because he's on a team that, even though they're behind in the Bundesliga and they were knocked out of the Champions League, but it's a better coached team. It's a better organized team than Bayern are right now. I don't know. I find it very difficult to separate the two, because when I see Musiala, he floats like a butterfly and sometimes stings like a bee. But there's no question that, I don't know. I'm sure Jules will come up with somebody, but I don't know if there's a country in the world that has two pairs of talent or two talents in that age range that are as good as these two.
I don't think so. It's just, can they play together as in not one cancelling out each other? And sometimes at the Euros in Germany, we saw that they were never really at their best, maybe together. And I guess that will come with time, maybe, and practice and everything. But yeah, I just think he's amazing. I think Jan is right. He will be in the Ballon d'Or conversation very soon. He's going to move to a bigger club, no offense to Bayer Leverkusen, but to a bigger club this summer, whether that's Bayern Munich or somewhere else in England or something. And then we will see what he does in a better team. But there's no doubt that he's one of the most talented players of this list.
You think he replicates those numbers at Real Madrid or Man City if he goes?
Yeah. I think he's a player to be 15-15 or 20-15 every single season. 20 goals, 15 assists is something that, I don't know what you think, Jan, but something that he should easily be the target for him, to have at least 15 goals and 15 assists every season.
Oh yeah, definitely, and he looks like that mature guy that will adjust to wherever he's going to play. If that's City, if it's Real Madrid, if it's Bayern Munich. The interesting thing about him, that a lot of people think that he will go in this summer. I'm not 100% sure of that. I think that maybe he can stay on, because they have always had a sensible plan of his development. I had the pleasure to talking to Simon Rolfes when I was for ESPN at the Frankfurt Leverkusen game, and well, it seemed that they were quite not sure, but they hoped that he would stay. I also maybe think that Xabi Alonso could stay, and I think that will be the key to what he's doing. We know that Bayern Munich are desperate to put Musiala and Florian Wirtz together, but I just came back yesterday from Germany, and the big talk now in Germany is how much money do Bayern Munich really have? They keep on spending money on extensions, and these are Festgeldkonto, these are account where they used to have a lot of money. That is not a lot of money anymore. That is what you need to buy a bus driver at the moment. So things change all the time. So I'm not 100% that Florian Wirtz will go. If I would say most likely now, I could be 100% wrong, of course. I think he will stay another season, and then he will move, and I think then he will move abroad.
Yeah, and just on that, do you think, obviously Bayern are not out of the running, but they're going to find it hard financially to do it. Do you think that Leverkusen could reject or resist a big offer from the Premier League? If Man City are keen, can they actually, financially, can they reject that?
No, I don't think so, because Leverkusen, I mean, like Eintracht Frankfurt, when they started with Marmoush, there was no way they're going to sell him. Okay, if we get 80, they got 80. Now you got the same thing with Ekitike. So these clubs need to do that. I mean, if you get 130, 140 million euro for a Florian Wirtz, you can't just say, no, we gotta keep, and then we have to find a new Florian Wirtz, which will be, of course, very, very difficult for them. But these clubs, they need to sell players. And so I think that will be a unbelievable offer, but we know by financial rules and all that kind of things, there are a lot of things that need to fit together. But I think that Leverkusen, as most clubs will, if they get a fantasy offer, that they will need to sell.
So go on, Jan, put you on the spot. Will he be at Leverkusen next year? Yes or no?
I say he will stay. I will also say that 2 + 2 is 4. I will say that Xabi Alonso and Florian Wirtz will go in a package to Real Madrid one day in the future.
You've probably already worked out by now that number one is Lamine Yamal. Who else, obviously? We're joined now from Spain by Sid Lowe. I'm sure you're sick of talking about just how good he is, but we're going to ask you again, how good is he?
Well, did you know that he was only 17?
Someone mentioned it once, yeah.
It feels like this kind of this preface to everything you say about him, or you have to say how good he is and then go, oh, and he's only 17. But I think we probably shouldn't get away from that all of the things that he's doing at an age where a lot of players are still not even playing first team football. I think, of course, there's a risk that we project onto him what we think he's going to be rather than just what he is being. But what he's been so far this season has been fantastic. He's definitely amongst the best 3 or 4 players in Spain this season. He does things with the ball that I don't think anyone else can do. I think he's carrying a responsibility for Barcelona to make things happen, even in those games when he's either not finishing or not providing the final pass. And so maybe the statistics don't quite bear out how influential he is. I think he's been hugely important. And yeah, you come back to the age, but I think even if you strip away the age and just look at the performances, he's a fantastic footballer.
I know that we like labelling every young footballer as the next Messi. Is there a genuine reason to do it, Jules, with Lamine Yamal? Are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, remember, was it last season, Sid, when Michel, the Girona manager, was saying, like, I don't want to do this, but I have to. Like, he's as good as Messi was, and certainly at his age, at 17 now, he's played more than Messi did and has done better than what Messi had done at 17 too. So the rest, I don't know how many Ballon d'Or he would win, or World Cups, or Champions League, etc., league titles, all of that. Nobody knows. But so for now, he's certainly ahead of what Messi where Messi was at the same age, and it's a different era, it's a different team.
Messi had Ronaldinho in front of him.
Sure,
he has Ferran Torres.
Okay, so that means it's even more remarkable, right, for Lamine to do that, I guess. But yeah, I just think when you talk about gift and just pure footballing gift, and some in this list had to work really hard to get here, some were just naturally gifted. I think Lamine is the best of them all because he just had this incredible gift too.
He has ridiculous physical gifts as well, and the physical maturity and an intellectual maturity that you don't often see. There's I mean, Sid can tell us better than anyone, but there's a tremendous amount of pressure to play for Barcelona anytime somebody at that age gets to the first team. He has the physicality, and he can thank his genes for that. But the mentality, I mean, the guy is zen. The guy's unflappable. Very rarely do you see him make a bad decision or lose his cool. I mean, occasionally it's happened. You know, people kick lumps out of him. I'm trying to think of a player at a club of this magnitude that has been in the first team and looked the part, looked like a veteran this early in his career. Mm. And I'm really, really struggling.
Look, I think he's an amazing player, and I'm not doubting any of this. But the Messi thing, it's like, you know, he's 17. Messi does seem to get better and better and better. Maybe Yamal is approaching his peak faster than anyone else has. To sustain this for 10, 15 years like Messi has,
sure.
That is tough. And obviously it's a different position as well. That clearly is going to be, you know, you talk about potential Ballon d'Or winners, you talk about Mbappe, you talk about Haaland, and this guy's probably going to be more than any of them. But still, it doesn't mean that he's going to be doing what Messi did at 27 when he's 27.
So if he stays at this level for the rest of his career,
of course,
he's still one of the best players in the world.
Absolutely.
If he just doesn't improve at all.
Yeah, it's just hard to... I don't think Messi and Ronaldo set the bar so incredibly, unattainably high that we just have to be careful about billing people as the next this or that. So, Sid, is the next Messi?
Well, I mean, look, what Gab says, I think there's an important point here, and this goes back to what I was saying about projection. And I think sometimes what happens, you get a young player that's really good, and you assume they will keep improving. And in a way, that makes it so that if take Gab's scenario, in which you've got a player that's this good and remains this good for the rest of his career, we'll go, wow, what a player. But then there is a possibility that within that context, and to be honest, I felt this happened a little bit, for example, with Ryan Giggs. But because you project onto them at 18, well, if they're already this good, imagine how good they will be. But it might not be that projection keeps happening and that evolution keeps happening. To specifically kind of align him with Messi and to try and see where that may end up. It's true that he's done more at this age than Messi had done at this age, partly, as Gab says, because of the players ahead of him and therefore the opportunity comes sooner. And I think had Barcelona been in better condition, these opportunities might not have happened so quickly. And so we certainly wouldn't be looking at Lamine Yamal as European champion with Spain. Because, of course, you don't get that chance with Spain until you get the chance with a club. The other thing that I think is potentially different, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see if Lamine can do this, is I think if you look at Messi's career, I think you can see 3 different Messis at least, in terms of the evolution of position, of the type of the game that he played, from that kind of electric winger to being the false 9, to then being the guy that was sort of dropping deep and playing those clever, subtle passes all the time. And I think one of the games that probably most stood out for people watching Lamine this year was away at Mallorca. Now, it's only Mallorca, and Mallorca, without doubt, made life slightly easy for him, but he plays a couple of extraordinary passes with the outside of his foot from a deeper position. And then you look at it and you think, this isn't the 17-year-old that wows us. This isn't the kid that's really fast, that takes people on, that's fearless because maybe he's not yet aware of the pressure around him and that is really exciting. This is a kid that has a subtlety of touch and of vision as well. And I think that's one of the reasons to kind of hang on to the hope that he might evolve into something even greater, because I think there's a variety to what he does, not just that, as I say, that emergence of this young, fast winger who takes everyone on, because we've seen a lot of those kind of players. This is someone with a little bit more to him, I think.
If we're talking about someone who could possibly be the face of football then, Gab, for the next decade, what are the obstacles for him to get there? Is it a risk of too much football, of burnout? Is he the type of character who could possibly be distracted by what is going to come naturally with his talent and fame?
Well, I mean, as far as I understand, in terms of his family and his private life, there's no immediate red flags, maybe, or potential red flags. Sid maybe can speak to this a little more. I think what Sid said there about his evolution, because let's face it, when you're in the wing, you don't generally get to make 60-yard passes with the outside of your boot. But if he can do that too, kind of like Varane or Zidane did, then maybe his position evolves. Maybe he plays off the striker. It's still a piece of clay. In many ways, there's a reason why when we see young players get into a team very young, generally they're forwards or wingers. It's because you've got, in some ways, not less responsibility, but simpler responsibility, more latitude for making mistakes and so on. I feel like he's evolved past that. He's shown that he can be the winger who runs at people and puts in crosses and occasionally finish. But he can do a lot more.
He's playing a lot more at his age than Messi did, than Cristiano Ronaldo did. And you look at people like Brazilian Ronaldo, who was playing at this age, fantastic superstar. Wayne Rooney.
I was waiting for you to mention Wayne Rooney.
No, but Michael Owen, that some players, especially forwards, if they're not managed properly, then they are overworked. The injuries start. I mean,
that's one of the risks, yeah.
And that is the big risk with Lamine Yamal, because there is a danger that Spain and Barcelona will continue to play him all the time. That's where you have to manage their career. Like I say, Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo weren't playing as regularly as he is at that age.
Sid, where do you stand on that then? How do Barcelona manage him between now and his fantastic future? What do they have to do to make sure that they can?
Let's bring the two things together. One is the physical side of it, and the other is what Gab was alluding to in terms of the surroundings. And actually, Barcelona have been very conscious of that already, because the surroundings aren't easy for Lamine Yamal. His dad is a kind of almost a sort of social media celebrity now as well, and there's been a very conscious attempt, I think, from Barcelona to manage his development as a kid as well, to keep him, for example, in the residency at La Masia for as long as possible, to try and help to kind of guide him. And there's always a risk, I think, of being over smothering in those scenarios, being over paternal. But Barcelona, I think, have been conscious of that. And the early signs are that he's very bright. very well aware of the environment he's in, and very, very capable of handling that. The physical side of it, it's interesting that this happens with Barcelona as well, because, of course, with Barcelona, there's lots of red flags in their very recent past. We all thought Ansu Fati was going to be a phenomenal player. And actually, to start with, he clearly was. But he's had big injuries, partly for being overworked, but partly, of course, his injuries being 2 knee ligament injuries are a misfortune rather than just overwork. There's been an awareness of the misfortune that befell Gavi, and in particular, the overuse of Pedri. So the year that Pedri played the Euros, which is the year that the pandemic Euros that was all around
21.
Europe. Yeah. And then he goes to the Olympics as well. And he played, I think, something like 72 or 73 games that season. It may even have been more. I can't remember the exact number. And there was very, very conscious awareness from everybody that this nearly did real damage to him. And I think there will be a care taken there. But the problem, of course, with this whole debate about taking care of our players, and it was really, really evident with Pedri, and I think it will become evident with Lamine. In fact, I think it already has been on occasions, is, of course, you've got the national team and your club involved. And as we've seen, whenever this debate comes up about fixtures and the calendar being too big and there being too many games, everyone always says you have to play fewer games. Yeah, but don't play fewer of mine, play fewer of yours. And so everybody kind of says, oh, no, I want him to be rested when he's with you, not when he's with me. And I think Lamine himself may need to be a little bit proactive in that. But there's certainly sufficient warnings to try to protect him.
Thanks, Sid, for joining us. I think we're all in agreement Lamine Yamal is a deserved number 1 pick.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's all for this week. Don't forget to check out the full list on ESPN.com. We'll be back next week to discuss PSG's post-Mbappe resurgence with Jules, and also hear from Harry Kane ahead of the Classica. Thanks for listening, and see you then.